All right, let's dive into one of the most unbelievable stories in all of history. We're talking about a teenage peasant girl from a village you've never heard of who ends up leading an army, crowning a king, and basically changing the destiny of an entire nation. This, of course, is the incredible story of Joan of Arc.
So here's the question that just seems impossible, right? You've got France, a kingdom on the absolute brink of collapse, getting crushed in a war that's been dragging on for almost 100 years. How on earth does a young woman who can't read or write with zero military experience show up and completely turn it all around? To even begin to get our heads around that, we need to see just how bad things really were.
So picture this, 1429. France isn't really France as we think of it. It is a fractured, broken country. The English control a huge part of it, including the capital, Paris, and they've got powerful French allies, the Burgundians, who control another massive chunk. All that's left is this little piece loyal to the uncrowned heir, Charles, known as the Dauphin. It was a completely desperate situation.
And it's into this absolute chaos, this brutal, endless war, that our main character steps onto the scene. And believe me, she is the last person on Earth anyone would have picked to be a savior. This timeline really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? The war had been going on since 1337, just a slow, agonizing bleed for France. By 1420, things got even worse. The Treaty of Troyes literally disinherited the French heir and handed the crown to the King of England. And by 1428, with the Siege of Orléans, well, that was the last major city holding out. It was basically game over.
So what could possibly motivate someone in this situation? According to Joan herself, it all started when she was 13. She said she started hearing voices and seeing visions of saints and angels, and they gave her a mission, straight from God. First, save France from the English. And second, get the Dauphin to Reims, the holy city where French kings were traditionally crowned. Now, for a peasant girl from a tiny village, that's not just ambitious, it's completely audacious.
Which brings us to the part of the story that feels like it's straight out of a movie. How did she actually do it? This is where she goes from total nobody to one of the most powerful figures in the kingdom.
Well, you don't just walk into the royal court and get an army. She had to prove she was the real deal. First, she gets a private meeting with the very skeptical Dauphin Charles, and somehow convinces him. Next, a whole panel of top theologians grills her, trying to find any hint of heresy, and they come up with nothing. And finally, and this was a huge deal back then, they examined her to confirm her virginity. See, there was this old prophecy that France would be ruined by a woman, but saved by a virgin from the borders of Lorraine. She fit the bill. Check, check, and check.
So with the court's official blessing, they give her a suit of armor, a banner, and send her off to Orléans. Remember, this is the city that's been under siege for months and is about to fall. The veteran French commanders are convinced it would take a miracle. Joan delivered one in just 9 days.
Her arrival was like a shot of adrenaline for the French army. These soldiers were beaten down, demoralized, and then she shows up. She wasn't some military genius, but her conviction that God was on their side was absolutely contagious. She would ride at the front, banner held high, inspiring everyone. At one point, she gets shot in the shoulder with an arrow, pulls it out herself, and goes right back to the fight. The very next day, the English just packed up and left. The siege was broken. This was the divine sign she had promised.
And she didn't stop. After Orléans, she was like, okay, now we go to Reims to crown the king. What followed was this absolute whirlwind campaign. Boom, another victory. Boom, another town liberated. At the Battle of Patay, the English army was totally shattered, and just a few weeks later, on July 17th, Charles VII walks into Reims Cathedral and is crowned King of France. And who's standing right beside him? Joan. In under 3 months, she'd done the impossible.
But you know, a story this incredible can't have a simple, happy ending. After this unbelievable high, Joan's fortune is about to take a dramatic and, well, a truly tragic turn.
In May of 1430, she was captured by those Burgundian soldiers and then sold to the English. And the English knew that just killing her as a prisoner of war wouldn't be enough. No, they needed to destroy her legacy. So they put her on trial for heresy. This was never about religion. It was a political hit job. The goal was simple. Prove Joan was a witch sent by the devil, and you prove that the king she crowned was illegitimate.
And let's be crystal clear. This trial was a complete sham from day one. They broke all their own rules. Church law said she should be in a church prison, guarded by women. Nope, they threw her in a military prison with English soldiers. She was supposed to get a lawyer. Nope, denied one. The whole thing was run by a bishop who was blatantly on the English payroll. The verdict was decided before they even started. But even in this rigged court, this teenager just ran circles around these educated men. They tried to trap her with this classic theological gotcha question: are you in God's grace? See, it's a trick. If she says yes, she's a heretic for claiming to know God's will. If she says no, she admits she's a sinner. Her answer was so brilliant, so perfect, it left them all completely speechless.
In the end, because they couldn't outwit her, they got her on a technicality. It's just awful. They basically bullied her into signing a confession where she promised to stop wearing men's clothes. Then they put her back in her cell with male guards. A few days later, she's wearing men's clothes again. Later testimony said her dress was stolen and she had no choice. But the court didn't care. They seized on it and said, aha, she's a relapsed heretic, and that carried a death sentence.
So they executed her, thinking that would be the end of her story, but they couldn't have been more wrong. In a way, Joan's death wasn't an ending at all. It was the beginning of a legacy that would only grow stronger over the centuries.
On May 30th, 1431, in the marketplace of Rouen, Joan was burned at the stake. She was about 19 years old, just a kid. Eyewitnesses said that as the flames rose, she begged for a cross to be held up high so she could see it until the very end.
But history has a funny way of sorting things out. Just 25 years after her death, a new trial was held, and the first one was officially declared a fraud. But get this, the ultimate vindication took almost 500 years. In 1920, the same Catholic Church that condemned her as a heretic officially made her a saint. You just can't make this stuff up.
And that's why her story is still so powerful. Her legacy is massive, and it's complex. She's the patron saint of France, a national hero. But she's also become this incredible feminist icon, a woman who shattered every expectation in a man's world. Her image has been used by everybody, from Napoleon to modern political parties, and her story just keeps inspiring people all over the globe. So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? I think it's this: the story of an illiterate teenage girl who commanded an army, crowned a king, and saved her country is proof, absolute proof, that one single person with enough conviction can fundamentally change the course of history. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who's going to be next?